Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk to you about Vedic astrology for the week and how it affects you and how it affects the world. Okay. I'm taping this on April 21st. I'm trying to get it in the day before or actually the day of Mercury retrograde. And so let me just push this back a little bit so my head's more in the frame. That's better. Okay. So my head will be bobbing in and out of the frame anyway, but it's a pleasure to see everyone again. Um, if you want to reach me for consultations or for lessons, I can be reached at 508-525-0001 or at Gary Gomes G at gmail.com. You can also reach me at neibas@comcast.net. That's a connection with my school. And again, we'll be looking at setting up classes, setting up formal classes really soon. Sorry for the adjustment. I'm just trying to get the best picture for you folks. And so let's get on with it. We have uh, a bit to cover today, and we just came out of an eclipse, so that energy is still going to be around. The sun's in Aries now, and let's look at the birth chart for today. Jupiter will be in Aries really soon too, and that'll be a big momentous event. But Mercury, as you can see, let me just make sure this chart shows up again. So, and 3 times for good luck. Okay. So that should be showing on your screen, hopefully. The first thing I want to point to is Jupiter. So this is Pisces. You can barely see it on your screen, I'm sure. That's Aries. That's Taurus. That's Gemini. That is Cancer. That is Leo. That is Virgo. That is Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and our old friend Pisces. Now, Jupiter's coming towards the end of Pisces. It means that's the end of one level of lessons we learned about the world and maybe letting go of some things which really are not so productive and starting to move into new areas of life which are more productive. Okay, so Jupiter in Pisces is a good placement, but it can leave us a little bit tied to the past. Maybe it's time to move on. And now this sun conjunction, this sun-moon conjunction, which happened yesterday, actually, the 20th, that's what causes eclipses, as you probably know. And Rahu is in this particular sign as well. Rahu is this large, all-engulfing energy that blacks out the sun and the moon. Rahu technically eclipses the sun, but whenever you see the sun and the moon together, that's when you know there's a solar eclipse. Whenever you see the sun and the moon in opposition from each other, that is 7 signs apart. That's a lunar eclipse. Okay, so the moon has to essentially move in front of the sun in order to cause an eclipse. And a lot of ancient thinkers thought that was an extra being in the sky, essentially swallowing the sun and the moon. And the energy is connected and the colors connected with Rahu. Rahu's colors tend to be ultraviolet. Ketu's colors tend to be infrared. So essentially, Ketu is more feeling, more intuition, more depth, more lower instincts. Rahu is essentially high intelligence, innovation, new things. sometimes even revolt, a desire to change existing systems and move into new directions. So Rahu is responsible for technological innovation. It's also responsible for people wanting to change their lives or change the existing order. It's technically the planet connected, or the Graha connected, with revolutionaries and outsiders, as is Ketu, but the outsiders in Rahu are more like nonconformists. Ketu are essentially antisocial nonconformists. Rahu essentially wants to change the world. Okay, so you'll hear a lot of negative things said about Rahu and Ketu in Vedic chart interpretations, and they aren't comfortable planets. They aren't comfortable grahas. Um, so Rahu usually causes a great deal of dissatisfaction wherever it's placed in the chart, and a great deal of anxiety and a great deal of upset. But no planet, I was thinking this the other day, no planet is by its nature evil or good. Some are easier than others, some are more difficult than others, and they all have attributes. And we label the good as easy, which sometimes is true and sometimes is not, and the tough as evil. And again, sometimes that's true and sometimes that's not. Rahu in this particular sign is very important because it does represent threats to established order. We've seen a lot of that over the past few months. Um, maybe not. Maybe you haven't seen it as much as I've seen it. Depends on what news sources you're watching. And I watch a variety of news sources, not just the major networks, but also um, uh, different countries, different media outlets, and they're not right-wing conspiracy outlets either. They're essentially independent media outlets that report on things you won't normally hear uh, covered on regular broadcasts, because regular broadcasts don't have time to. Number one, that's not their focus. Number two is their orientation is more of a status quo orientation. So that doesn't mean they don't report bad news. They certainly do, but they also report news which is relatively safe to report, or relatively easy to report. And with this Rahu Mercury conjunction, especially with Mercury going retrograde, you're going to see a lot of old stories coming back over the next 3 weeks to 6 weeks. The retrograde ends May 14th. It started today and ends May 14th. And so that's one thing that will affect things. You'll also see issues coming back from the past that you thought you had resolved, but a lot of that has to do with authority figures. Essentially, authority figures being questioned, being interrogated, trying to maintain control. Saturn aspects the sun in this chart, so we're going to be in for about another 3 weeks of really hard work through May 14th. And with Venus in Taurus, there'll be a lot of pressure on increasing financial growth and financial status. But you'll see a lot of disagreement about how to move forward in the politically and also financially. Now, in this chart that I have for this particular week, I did it at an unusual time of day for me to do this chart. So I'm doing this around 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. And so Venus is in the 9th house. So this is not a bad chart. This week actually looks fairly good. But again, confidence will be, there'll be a lot of focus on over the coming week on finances, loss of finances, um, illness, and this also relates back to the COVID epidemic. So we're not going to see an outbreak of COVID, but there will be new news stories on COVID. Um, and I don't know if you've seen, there's been a new one-shot vaccine that's been issued. It's being issued. So that's, so again, it's not always about um, I'm just trying to think of the right word, about who has the right message on COVID. It's also about news about quote unquote permanent cures or a permanent answer. So this new shot will essentially negate the need for any of the boosters or any of the other things. And the other thing that we have also is we have a lot of focus on money because K2's in the second house and uncertainty about the future in terms of money. Mars is in the 10th house. People will be more bellicose than normal this week. Mars is, again, one of the things I always caution people to look for in astrology is when you think you're being lied to, chances are you are. And the Mars in Gemini and Mercury retrograde is we're going to hear a lot of character assassination going on in the press and also from the government and also from political parties. Like I said, this isn't a right or a left issue. It's more of an issue about how people deal with politics or how people address political issues. And so there'll be a great deal of lying and blaming going on. And most media outlets, this is independent, mainstream, official, unofficial, etc., will essentially stretch the truth in order to make their point or their particular position gain. So that's something to watch out. And like I said, over the next couple of months, you're going to be seeing a lot of this. One of the things that I noticed also over the past few weeks, I just want to mention one political issue, and actually it has nothing to do with a political position, but the United States has just announced there's been an announcement of a new candidate for president in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is polling for an initial out of the gate. His polling is 14%. So that's surprising because he's running against an incumbent president. Now actually, it's interesting because this is the first time a Kennedy has run against an incumbent president. His father ran against an incumbent president. Robert F. Kennedy ran against an incumbent president. His uncle Teddy Kennedy ran against Jimmy Carter in 1980. And Robert's running against Joe, or running for the nomination against Joe Biden in this year. So this is interesting. This is sort of like a pattern repeating itself, but I think it's interesting that again, this isn't really the level of a threat yet to President Biden, but it is significant that he was show so strongly coming out of the gate against an incumbent. That's a pretty impressive start. So this just gives a feel for the desire for change or the level of dissatisfaction. Again, this isn't a major deal, but it is I think it's significant. This isn't like an earth changing deal, but I think it is significant that he would get that much support coming out of the gate. Um, and again, that may just dissipate and go away. It's still really early in the presidential selection process for the United States. If we go around to different parts of the world, again, you're seeing problems with, again, I hate to pick on France, but you're seeing some problems with Macron continuing in France. You're seeing some problems developing um, in uh, in Germany, and I don't think there's any incumbency against it. Uh, I don't think there's any elections upcoming in Germany. You're seeing some political turmoil, especially in Southeast Asia, Southeast Asia, where the eclipse occurred, and you're also seeing a lot of problems in South America, in even in China, where there's no doubt that Xi is going to stay in power, but um, the issue is um, there's certainly been political unrest and political unhappiness in other parts of the world. So also, one of the things I've been noticing, I've been watching a lot of. I always watch. I always used to watch C-SPAN, and now that you can see the congressional hearings on TV, um, um, essentially through different outlets on TV like Forbes and other outlets, you can actually see um, the actual hearings in real time, and it's been fascinating at the amount of um, rancor I've seen exhibited by both sides of the aisle, either for or against witnesses. So a lot of this is political theater. I'm not going to pretend it's not, but I think it is significant that you would have this level of attack, and this sort of like underscores to me that we're in. A lot of people are in the mood for change. A lot of people are in the mood for um, um, revision. Now, the big question is, will this continue after uh, Rahu and Ketu change signs in the fall? So in November at the latest, Rahu and Ketu change signs from Aries and Libra to Virgo for Ketu and Rahu and Pisces for Rahu, excuse me. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not this desire for change or reform shifts, and whether or not, since Virgo and Pisces are changeable signs, um, this change will actually occur, or whether it will dissipate into vague dissatisfaction. The other thing you'll have to watch out for during the Rahu Jupiter conjunction, especially, is around June. I would say between May and June, some signs of economic panic. And I think one of the things that'll cause it will be a shortage of oil and a shortage of material resources that'll come up because Mars will be debilitated by that time. And not May, excuse me, but June, July. And so, Jupiter will be passing close to the eclipse points in May and June. So the eclipse points around 5 degrees 39 minutes in, and that'll cause a lack of faith in underlying institutions. So it'll be an interesting time to look at those things. So let's go back. Let's go ahead and look at the individual signs for this month. So that's enough of the global stuff. But like I said, I think this year is going to be kind of a revelatory year for people. It's slowly but surely. And again, I'm not saying a lot of these I'm not saying a lot of the questioning of the government is even correct. I'm just saying it's unnatural to assume that it won't happen, number one. Number two, given the planetary configurations that are happening right now, is I think inevitable. Um, Also, Jupiter in conjunction with Rahu does lead to a questioning of institutions, teachings, ideologies, conventional wisdom, and there'll be essentially a re-examination over the next, I would say, 10 months, excuse me, around 8 months or so, about which direction people want their governments to be and their institutions to be leading. I think it'll be a really interesting time and a really a good time to re-examine what you want out of life just in general. Okay, it's always a good time to do that. It's never a bad time to do that, but that'll be like on the plate a lot over the next 6 months or so, the next six or 7 months or so. So if we go to the chart, so let's say you're an Aries sun. So Aries sun goes from April 15th to May 15th. So you should be feeling pretty confident right now. A lot of focus on home life, a lot of focus on luck, but also some focus on barriers, frustrations, feeling like you're not getting what you want, and that and and also some manifestation of enemies coming up at this particular time. So those enemies will stick around for about another 3 weeks or so. Then they'll finally be out of your life when Mercury goes direct. But I have known some people who have every sun who've been experiencing new challenges in relationships and also in terms of confidence. So this particular combination is a little bit. You'll have to tough it out for about the next 3 weeks, just until this frustration goes. And this is tough for every son because every son wants to get things done. Really kind of doesn't like obstacles to get in the way. Usually bulldozes through obstacles, but it'll keep getting these repeat hits from this retrograde Mercury. Okay. So again, it's not really the end of the world. The Sun Rahu combination in the chart is very strong. It'll be very good for you in terms of fulfilling your desires, okay, because Mars is in the third house, fulfilling economic issues, but some tension in relationships or some uncertainty in relationships ensues. Some problems with friendships will ensue. Okay, so friends will seem to be a little bit hostile or a little bit of a drag on your attention. But Jupiter's in the 12th house, so there'll at least be some feelings of contentedness that you've done the right thing by these people. For May 15th through June 15th, this is Taurus, Sun. Venus is in the first house. It creates what's called a Malavya Yoga, which is a Venus great personality yoga. It's very good for financial growth, very good for financial stability. There is some romantic discord because Mars is in the second house. This sign will be very aggressive this month. It will be it will have aggressive spouses. The spouse will seem to be a little bit eager to grab money. It looks like from this chart. This sign itself will also be a little bit angry. K2 is in the sixth house. Again, some problems for illnesses with Venus ruled natives just in general, both Libra and Taurus. With Libra, it's more direct. With Taurus, it's more short-term problems. And we'll talk about Libra in a few minutes. I don't want to spend too much time on that. And Mars, the seventh lord in the second house, kind of a challenging time for relationship partners and for relationship life just in general. There'll be a lot of quick, what I would call quick or snappy arguments. The other combination here is we have Saturn in the 10th house, so good for work life. Jupiter's in the 11th house, good for financial gains. But towards the middle of next week, you'll start to see a shift, and it'll force some expenditures for this sign. And that's really what a lot of the concerns are about this expenses because of home, because of desires and ambitions, and that'll continue for a little while, at least until May 14th. For Gemini, Gemini is really aggressive right now, really in a fighting mood. And again, this sign is having, so this is June 15th to July 15th. And this sign is also having problems with friends, essentially ungrateful friends. Career life, though, is going relatively well for the sign. And again, slow and steady, persistent work is the answer for this particular sign right now. It will be slow, but it will be long lasting. The financial growth will be slow, but it'll be long lasting. Saturn aspects this cluster of planets in the 11th house. So again, a lot of frustration, a lot of anxiety about future, some perception that you're going backwards, but it's only perception, it's not real. And like I said, some frustration with friends. Children will be a little bit unusual or a little bit erratic, but that's not really a bad combination. And children will be essentially will probably cost you a little bit of money. 7th house Lord is Jupiter, so career life, especially with relationship partners, will advance relatively smoothly. There will be financial gains for this sign, and again, this sign will spend a lot of money on beauty or luxury. Okay. For Cancer, Cancer has the moon in the 10th house of career, so there'll be some anxiety about career. This is July 15th through August 15th. Sorry about that. And I need to look over here and see where I am. So Cancer has both the first lord and the second lord of finances in the 10th house. So good career gains, some expenses for travel, some problems with children and with supervisors, but basically not a bad time for Cancer. If Cancer wants to do well career-wise, they should be willing to travel or willing to communicate over long distances. And overall, this is not a bad month for Cancer, but that Rahu over here, this will give some recognition of some fame to the sign. And Jupiter in the 8th house will give Jupiter in the 9th house, will give a lot of luck and a lot of new opportunities from superiors or from teachers. Saturn in the 8th house is really the only downside to this particular situation, because relationship partners will seem to be a little bit difficult to deal with, or a little bit crotchety, grouchy. For Leo, this is August 15th to September 15th, roughly. This particular sign again, has stability in relationship life. It's not really the best combination, but at least it will give a stable relationship life. And also, K2 sits in the 3rd house, a lot of courage to this sign, as I've said in previous months, a lot of willingness to take chances. Jupiter gives unexpected gains of money in the 8th house. Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Rahu in the 9th house, soon to be joined by Jupiter, should give this sign a huge advance career-wise. Some of it will be temporary and won't manifest really well until around middle of May. but this is not a bad placement. Venus is in the 10th house, good for career and good for gain of property for the sign in general over the next few weeks or so. For Virgo, Virgo has had kind of a weird time of it. This is September 15th through October 15th. K2's been in the second house of money, so there's a little bit of stagnation financially for this sign. The other thing is you have Saturn in the sixth house. There'll be dietary problems or food problems connected with this sign. This sign is typically considered to be very sensitive to changes in diet, very sensitive to changes in environment anyway. But with K2 in the second house, so the person will feel that hungry usually with that combination, and also the sixth house being afflicted. It's sort of like a double hit in terms of gastrointestinal disorders. And with this eclipse in the eighth house, that's sort of like brought a lot of focus to that. That'll start clearing out though within a few days. And Jupiter's in the seventh house. It will bring new partnerships to light for these individuals. So that's actually good. The thing of it is, it's Mercury's the ruler, Mercury's in the eighth house. So again, this sign sort of feels like being alone is a little bit frustrated with itself for wanting to be alone, but that's really its best action until around the end of May, to be honest. And that's really where it can get the most done. You know, it's by hunkering down, not by being secluded or antisocial, but by working and doing research and getting in touch with work projects that it may have fallen behind on. And let me see now. Venus is in the ninth house, good for financial growth, good for benefits from the government. Mars is in the 10th house. So again, it'll be motivated to act. This particular sign will be motivated to act, but again, a little bit cautious, not really wanting to put itself out there quite yet. For Libra, Libra's had this K2 in the first house for the past year and basically a year or so, and Rahu in the seventh house. So relationship partners will seem to be a little bit difficult to please, you know, almost always complaining. And this is October 15th to November 15th for sun signs. Rising signs are going to differ, moon signs are going to differ, so it's going to be tough to tell which rising sign, which moon sign you have from this chart. You can get rising sign books, but they won't. And moon sign books, but they really won't necessarily tell you. You can get a Vedic chart calculated online for free. There are several websites that will do that for you. So you can kind of figure out, if you know your time of birth, what your rising sign is. So that might help. And also what your moon sign is. But K2 in Libra, let's get back to K2 in Libra. Sign is very intuitive, a little bit drawn to the abnormal or the spiritual, and also a little bit secluded, wanting to be alone or in meditation. Scorpio is the second house, and the Lord of the second house is in the ninth. So relationship life, and also financial life look fairly good because Mars is in the ninth house. Relationship partner will actually be relatively nice, except for weird moments. And also, one of the things that shows up from this particular combination is you have Saturn in the fifth house. That's actually good for study. It's good for work. It's good for enhancing the mind, okay, for this particular sign. And also good for solid work connected, you know, both physical labor and intellectual labor for the sign, because Saturn's in Aquarius, which is a rather unorthodox or intellectual sign. Jupiter's in the sixth. You don't get much help from gurus or guides in this particular time. You'll get more help next week. when Jupiter enters the seventh house, and that will actually increase relationship opportunities. It's going to be kind of interesting because although with K2 being in the first house, this sign wants to be alone a lot, it'll draw relationship interest a lot over the next month or so. There'll also be a lot of interest in religion and spiritual life this sign as well, because of the placement of the 12th Lord in the eighth house, along with the Sun and Jupiter. In the seventh house, along with the Sun and Jupiter. The Sun-Jupiter conjunctions give interest in going to temples and providing spiritual advice. Venus is in the eighth house. That's the Lord of the first. Venus is in its own sign, so the sign will seem very attractive, very charismatic to people. If it smiles at people, it'll draw all kinds of attention. If the person who has the sign smiles at people, they get all kinds of attention. So it's good so even if you don't feel like going out and meeting people, it's probably a good idea to do so. Mars is in the ninth house. We already spoken about that before, so some luck in terms of property. And that's it for Libra. So for Scorpio, we have Mars is in the eighth house. So that again gives some relationship problems. Not as much as last month, but basically it'll still be there. We have Sun, Moon, and Rahu in the sixth house. So again, there'll be some worries about problems with the government, problems with debt, problems with enemies. And so from this combination, the seventh house, even though it has Venus in it, is surrounded by malefics. And whenever you see, or surrounded by difficult planets, and whenever you see that kind of a combination, it makes relationship life a little tougher, makes life a little tough for relationship partners. Jupiter's in the fifth house. That's a luck enhancing placement. It'll soon move to the sixth. That'll take a little bit of that luck away, not a lot. And again, don't let anybody, especially if you're sensitive. This is like, it's interesting because I want to say this before, but it just brought me up now. Some of these difficult planetary configurations are not really meant to discourage you or make you less able to achieve your goals. Okay, so I would say when you're listening to broadcasts like this or reading any kind of astrological forecast or any kind of fortune telling, don't let that rule your life. If you want to do something and you want to do it, you can at least try it. It's not necessarily so. Our success is not in how we deal with good luck. Our success is judged by how we recover from failure or from trying things that don't work out. So if you're having a tough time right now, the key element in success is not giving up. Just one more punch, as Paramahamsa Yogananda said. And I think one of the things to keep in mind is that even though Scorpio has this transit of Jupiter moving from the fifth house to the sixth house, this will allow Scorpio to improve a great deal. Venus is shining on Scorpio right now. It'll give it more knowledge and more willingness to grow and more willingness to learn. So these aren't necessarily bad transits, so keep that in mind. And I think that using these particular energies, both for career, both for improving oneself in career matters, which is what this particular combination indicates. So the Sun is Lord of the 10th house, Moon is Lord of the 9th in the 6th house. That means if you start to build your skills up, you'll actually do better career-wise over the next month or so. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at these. For Sagittarius, so again, watch out for what you eat. Don't get there may be some problems with that with diet. But again, these aren't serious issues. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius has Jupiter in the fourth house. So that presents a Hamsa yoga or another great personality yoga. And essentially, the chart is a little bit blessed by Jupiter and Venus being where they are right now, because that helps take the rough edges off the chart. And essentially, for Sagittarius, there'll be a strong desire to preach to people, to help people. Mercury, the Lord of the 10th house, there'll be some slight setbacks in career, nothing really to write home about, nothing really to get upset about, which will pass within about a month's time. Venus is in the 6th house, so some issues maybe with overreading for this particular sign, and some arguments with spouse. Case who's in the 11th house, I've encouraged people with Sagittarius rising to, or Sun, that's so Scorpio is November 15th to December 15th, Sag is December 15th to January 15th. And Sag should have overall good luck from home, good luck from career, but again, don't let minor problems get in your way. These planets are located in the 5th house. They're probably the result of actions you've taken in the past, which need to be cleaned up, but they're not necessarily detrimental. And Venus in the 6th, you'll probably have some opposition from females at work. And Mars in the 7th, probably more fights with relationship partners, but nothing really all that horrible. For Capricorn, that's January 15th to February 15th. You have to check the clock. You have Jupiter's in the 3rd house, so very diplomatic. A lot of disruption at home, some lack of recognition in a career. That's not new for Capricorn. Venus, though, is in the 5th house, so that's actually excellent for this sign. It'll give good promotional opportunities and good financial rewards. Mars is in the 6th house, will make the sign more competitive. K2 in the 10th, that's the lack of recognition in career, but that's going to pass. By the end of the year, you'll find yourself in an entirely different position. So overall, not a bad week for Capricorn. For Aquarius, Saturn's in the 1st house, so this is again this desire to like push through for and solidify unconventional positions, new technologies, also to block attempts to deceive through technological innovation. So that's Saturn aspect on Aries from this chart. Jupiter's in the 2nd house. This should give some financial gains to this planet, and also new desire to travel, new desire to go out and see things and do different things over the next few weeks, over the next few months, excuse me. Venus is in the 4th house, so home life will be relatively pleasant. Mars is in the 5th house, so there'll be some arguments with children or sometimes with romantic partners. Romantic partners will seem to be a little bit tired or a little bit upset with themselves, so just be patient with them. K2's in the 9th house can give unusual bursts or unexpected bursts of luck, but it'll also give some delays in getting rewards. And finally, for Pisces, so that's for February 15th through March 15th. Pisces is March 15th through April 15th. And essentially, this sign will give a lot of financial ambition, good diplomatic skills, some problems with relationship partners. Relationship partners seem willing to fight or manipulate you. Don't get involved. Again, this time is not a particularly great times to get involved in romantic relationships. It doesn't mean no relationships can work, but for um, Taurus, Gemini, uh, let's see, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Pisces, I would avoid new romantic relationships just in general. A lot of the other signs aren't um, don't do that well. Aquarius is not it's not a good time for new romantic relationships because they'll be deceitful, and the same is true of Libra and Aries. So a lot of the signs, there are only like around 3 or 4 signs which are clear for romantic relationships. So keep that in mind. It's kind of a treacherous time to get involved in romantic involvements or love affairs of any kind. And that really won't be clear until around June or July of this year. But basically, this sign will do well financially. It'll do, but it will have some hidden phobias or hangups, some criticism from relationship partners, and also some financial losses. Now let's look at the map of the world and see where. All right, so this is what we have. So I'm looking in particular at Mars is passing close to Hawaii and the Aleutian Islands. Now, the Aleutians, there's not a lot of activity in the Aleutians, but maybe um, volcanic activity. Hawaii, no, I'm not sure. I don't want to predict. I don't want to predict that. I think more weather issues in general. Now, as we look down here, Jupiter, Sun, um, and what's that other line? Moon and Mercury lines and Rahu lines are all in western United States and Mexico. So we're going to see a lot of disruption in that part of the country. Okay. Um, the worst hit will probably be around Montana. And it looks like North Dakota to me, just because of we have this descending Saturn line running through. And also, there'll be what I would call a lot of bad reports coming out of this part of the country right here, essentially between the belt between Montana and California, all the way through Oregon. So this part of the United States looks like it's in trouble. Some natural catastrophes or disasters in eastern Texas, maybe Louisiana, and down through Nicaragua, and even down into southern Chile and Tierra del Fuego. There's a Venus line, so we may have some flooding or some issues in Michigan, all the way down through Georgia and into Florida and down into Cuba and again Central America and down into the west coast of South America. The parts that are really afflicted, and the Saturn line will definitely affect Argentina and this entire belt. South America is trapped between a belt of Saturn and Mars. So this part of South America will be in kind of a deprivational pattern right here. And that won't change for a couple of months at least. There'll be a lot of civil unrest in Brazil and also some economic hardship in Brazil, especially on the East Coast. As we go up towards England and Iceland, we have a Jupiter line going up towards Iceland. So there may be a shift in governments or philosophy up near Iceland. And as we get closer to England, we have a sun line. So we have all these eclipse lines running through all the way through Western Europe, all the way up into Norway, up through Denmark, up through Sweden and Finland, and all the way down through Spain, France, Germany. So those parts of the world are going to be relatively have have some problems. There's a Venus line running close to the Ukraine. Maybe there'll be some kind of policy or some kind of ceasefire in Ukraine. Let's hope so. And there's also a Venus line running up through Algeria and Libya and into Greece and near Turkey and up through Bulgaria and into Ukraine and into the Soviet Union or into Russia, excuse me. The other thing is we have a Jupiter line, so we have a cross of Jupiter and Venus, so that may be a good sign. Let's hope. And finally, we have a Mercury Rahu line running through it. So it's an eclipse line, so it's not really, there's an eclipse line running through there, so maybe there'll be an attempt to broker peace. It'll fail, or it'll go through several iterations before it's successful. But there's always some reason to hope here. One thing I am worried about, though, is this Mars Rahu combination over Western India and Pakistan and Afghanistan. And also going up into the former Soviet socialist republics to the north. So the new countries that were formed. Unfortunately, I don't have those memorized yet. And we also have so that looks difficult for Western India in terms of both government censorship and even in terms of perhaps demonstrations. So this is roughly around Delhi and Bombay. That's the area that will be affected, and now through Kerala in India. And you see now there's no line. There's a Saturn line running through Myanmar, along with a Venus line. So that inhibits freedoms for this part of the country, or for this part of the world, excuse me, and also up through China, what used to be called Tibet, and into Mongolia. So this looks a little bit rough for China as a whole. And also we have, but China is clear of a lot of these things, but it still does have that Saturn Mars combination. So it's still kind of clamped in. And that'll make it frustrating and a little bit trigger happy, I think. The other parts of the world I'm a little bit worried about are Korea, Japan, and this region down here, down through Eastern Australia, and even some violence in Central Australia. So it looks to be kind of a rough week, especially in terms of messaging from the government. I think a lot of governments around the world are going to engage in restrictive activities. They'll take back, or they'll try to make critics criminals, or besmirch them. At the same time, a lot of critics of governments will also try to do the same thing to governments. So it's not like I'm trying to take one side against the other, but with Sun Rahu combinations, it's usually there's usually some kind of prevarication or hype going on. And what I mean by that is this exaggeration of threats or exaggeration of danger. And I think we're going to see a lot of fear campaigning over the next few months. And like I said, this isn't just true of the United States where I am. It's true of the entire cluster of governments around the world. So just again, like I said, just be aware of that and keep your critical thinking blinders on. Okay, all right. So that doesn't mean there's nothing to be worried about, but that doesn't mean you have to worry about everything. So that's it for me for this week. As always, thank you very much for tuning in. If you like what I'm doing, if you can, I did get some questions last week I haven't answered yet. I apologize for that, but I will answer them soon. Some people were asking me about the economy, if I recall correctly. And so I will answer that. But in the meantime, I love you. Don't worry, everything will work out fine. Just keep on plugging, keep on doing what you're doing, pursue your dreams, pursue your goals, because if you don't, nobody will. Okay? So again, I love you all. Thanks again for watching, and stay safe and stay sound and stay sharp. Okay? I wish you all realization. Thank you and have a great week. Bye, everyone.